Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Rapid Speedrun against Mini Bubby, rated 1261, who plays the Scandinavian defense. This is very popular online, but he doesn't follow it up with a theoretical move. He gives a check. All the checks are bad in the Scandinavian because they just help white develop, and white's queen ends up misplaced. So he plays a6. What does this threaten? Nothing. So I'm just going to develop a third piece while he keeps moving pawns. He plays b5. What does this threaten? Maybe just to kick a knight around. What's the drawback? Waste time. I'm just going to castle, just gain further lead in development. Let him kick me around, I don't mind. Now when he does, the only two available squares are these two. You can go to either one. I'm just going to go to a4 if he kicks me. Look at the c5 square. But instead he plays another pawn move, which blocks his knight's development, doesn't threaten anything, and just looks all around terrible. So let's continue our lead in development with d4 opening the bishop. You also have rook e1, which is more tactical as it x-rays the queen and offers bishop takes b5 possibilities with check. So he makes more pawn moves. How is this guy 1300? Nobody knows. Let's keep developing towards the center, creating threats. Our position's amazing and his is terrible. Okay, so he just develops behind a pawn. Now we don't have the check, but we still can take the free material. It may not win a queen, but it is a good move, right? So let's take free stuff because the queen is attacked. He doesn't notice and hangs his queen. He's moving quickly. He's not thinking. He's only making pawn moves. Now he's thinking. This is the longest he's spent on a turn right now. But only after the queen's gone. So what's the point? And I mean, what is that? All those pawn moves? I just want to check if I didn't blunder anything, although I don't see how I could have, but you never know. Okay. Keep analyzing. Yeah, not even in an accuracy, so let's just go to the next game. Okay, so now we're against Daniel Rahim Kulov, rated 1258. What? And he resigns. Oh, I must have played him. It says your score 1-0. Why does it keep giving me opponents I've played? The pool has to be larger than that. Okay, but he must remember me or something because he immediately resigned. Free rating for us, I guess. Not the point of the speed run, but what are you gonna do? So now we're against Mamadalagami, but he's provisional. So he only has 6 games. He just joined today. Not the ideal opponent, but let's see what happens. So no Kalashnikov. We take here. We still have yet to get a Smith Mora, but he takes with the queen, which is susceptible to a developing move with tempo, so we're going to play that. He now goes to the side, trying to keep some pressure on the position. It makes some sense. But now we can develop our second knight, hit the pawn, stay flexible. So he develops the bishop, attacks the knight. If you play a6, you're not even threatening to take the bishop because the rook is hanging. I'm going to play queen a5 check, just developing, forcing the queen trade, meaning he'll have no pressure, he'll have no opening advantage, and black is perfectly fine and equal. Now we can just play a middle game, a queenless middle game, and try to outplay each other. So he retreats to defend the pawn, and my knight is kind of misplaced here. So I'm just going to bring it back in the center, and it also stops e5 pawn push. So he develops his knight, doesn't threaten anything. So let's equalize the pawn space, the space in the center due to his pawns. Now he no longer has a pawn giving him more space. Space is equal in the center. And now we even have one central pawn to his 0. So he moves the same piece again to try to mess up our structure, but that would give up an important bishop on an open board, which gets strong, and bishops get stronger as the game goes on. So I'm not against ruining my structure for his bishop. I'm not against it. You could fianchetto this bishop. We could also go the normal way. Which way? I'm gonna play the normal way. Play e5 just to control these squares from his minor pieces, and I'll get my bishop out the normal way. By doing this, I'll have a pawn in the center, and he won't, which gives me a little extra space, which I like. So he castles. Now, granted, he has the better structure because of my 3 pawn islands, but I have the light square bishop. So I have the bishop pair, and that does count for something. So I have multiple developing moves. You could move the bishop out. Makes a lot of sense. D3 or C5? Probably D3 for now. Maybe C5? Maybe C5 actually. Hard to say. In any case, I know I want my rook on B8, hitting this pawn and stopping his bishop from developing. So I'm going to go with that since it's more definitive, a more concrete idea. Stay a little bit flexible with both my bishops, which can go in either diagonal. So he develops a knight, but if he takes, he only strengthens our center, creates a pawn duo. That's good for us. So we definitely are ignoring that. If we pin his knight, he'll likely just move his rook somewhere, unpinning. And okay, the bishop's fine on that diagonal, but what's the big deal? Maybe now we can develop with a little more, again, definitiveness, because he committed his knight here. So instead of picking one of these squares, we can try to just develop it while attacking something. So a little bit more concrete. And this, if it forces him to take our knight, fixes our center. If he leaves it there, we can at the very least mess up his structure if we want. But he plays f4. This does weaken this diagonal, so you can always throw in bishop c5 for free, which helps your knight jump in the center, hits the rook and the pawn. Could immediately be good. So I am going to throw in the free check because circumstances have changed. He moved the f-pawn. And now I hit the rook, his rook goes somewhere. Or he can give up his other bishop and take the pawn. But in that case, I have the bishop pair and he has stuff hanging. Sure, he's temporarily up a pawn, but 2 bishops against 2 knights, more active rook. It shouldn't end well for white. He doesn't go for it, but then you kind of just lose material outright, so that was probably his best try, was to do it, to go for it anyway and just take it. Because now I take a pawn and hit a rook, and then I get the turn back. I can develop my bishop, and My initiative is too strong with material gain. He had to try to go for the pawn up variation and hold. So he moves his rook. Now if we go here, his rook doesn't have very many squares. He chooses this way. Interesting. We have our win condition. We're up a pawn. But it's, it's whatever. I mean, you have bishop f5, x-raying his rook. You could just take the knight to get the turn back. If we go bishop f5 and we get him to take the pawn, do we have a cool move there? Can we go bishop g6 and trap the rook? If he moves his knight to try to play f5, we can hit the rook immediately. Maybe that works. So I'm going to go for bishop f5 because it's a nice active square that x-rays the rook. And maybe it comes with a trick. Okay, he doesn't even go for it. He just takes the central pawn. Anticlimactic. Is there any good knight jump to hit his rook? This hangs. If I go here, I mean, he could just do a bunch of stuff. If I go here, it's a little fancy, but doesn't actually threaten. Has this square, which is interesting. It's like a convoluted knight maneuver, but this comes with tempo. And when he moves the rook, this hits his bishop, which he wouldn't want to give up. Maybe he comes to the center and blocks. But then this pawn's hanging as well. So maybe this knight jump, as weird as it looks, maybe it just works. Move by move, so we do it. Now his rook is hit. Maybe he doesn't notice. Maybe he does, but I don't think so. He just develops a bishop. But now I think I'm just going to take the rook. Now his b pawn is hanging. So he's going for broke because he knows he's losing. So he makes a random pawn move to counter our rook. So do we take the pawn or move the rook, guys? Or something else? Let's move the rook in his position. He also has some back rank issues if we can somehow exploit that. And you can see how the bishops are just lasering through the board because it's an open center. There's no pawns in the way. So he moves the knight. What does this threaten? Checks, bishops, I guess. But we want access to the back rank because he has a back rank problem. We also have our win condition up 6 points. So we trade even though he hangs it, but we would trade, like if this was a normal trade, we would still do it. However, here he's just hanging it for no reason. He gives us a check. We just take back. Our king is entirely safe. If you're not sure, just check your opponent's forward moves in your territory. If they're not scary, don't worry. So he's going for this double attack, but we're going to let him give us this check because it doesn't do anything except improve our king with threats. Our rook and our bishop coordinate on the square, so knight retreat doesn't save him from checkmate. Once I move my knight with discovered check, he'll have to block with the knight and checkmate. Right now his bishop's under attack. He can try to go here to stop the checkmate, but the knight also supports the square, same as the bishop. So now we deliver this check, which would at the very least win the bishop, which was already loose, but like you could have taken it with the king. But instead of taking a free bishop, we go for checkmate. Hopefully I didn't make a dumb mistake here because then we would get 3 games in a row. Played well. Well, the guy resigned on the second game, but okay, so we have some weird gambit in the Sicilian. Okay, no mistakes, no blunders. 17 center pawn, only 3 inaccuracies, bringing us to 95. So that's good. So we have some good some good games for this video. So development and center. Development and center. Development for free and getting the type of game I want. I'm forcing the queen trade, so all of his attacking stuff, irrelevant. Force move. Okay, improving a piece. You don't want just a loose knight on the rim. Center and development. Force move. Center and development. And black's already preferred. He takes force move, and notice how right now it's minus 0.5. Black's half a pawn better. As soon as he takes our knight to ruin our structure, it gets to minus 1.3. Twice as bad, more than that, by giving up the bishop pair. So you can see the bishop pair is more important than this pawn structure in this open position. So keep it in mind when you're evaluating decisions. So he castles, and now it's minus 1.5. 3 times as bad as if he didn't make that trade. So we develop and we restrict him. What's the best move here? Of course. I wasn't even thinking about the light square bishop, but you can develop with a threat. That makes a lot of sense. But I was focused on the dark square bishop and the rook for some reason. So we develop with restriction instead of a threat. Now we're just developing and preparing king safety. Free improving move, since he weakened the diagonal. Free improving move, because it comes with a threat. And he absolutely has to take and go down that line. So he gets a knight, I get a bishop, and then let's just say he tries to take a pawn. Then he'll hang the b pawn, and his position kind of collapses. So it doesn't really work for him because I'll be in his position with threats and pressure along the 7th, which he can't really do anything about, and a super strong, super open light square bishop. That's why the computer doesn't even want him to take a central pawn. They want him to do something else, like just prevent me from infiltrating. But in that case, I can get rid of this, and then you play this position, we castle, and you have to figure it out on your own for here. But you can see that the center's open, so these bishops, super dangerous. Knights are going to have trouble playing as the bishops just harass everything in the position. So that's what I was going for. But he didn't do it, and the second he doesn't, you can see it goes from minus 1 to minus 2.3. So black is clearly better to black's just winning. And it's that easy when they make a mistake. Because now we take free stuff for free, and then we develop for free. We improve a piece with a trap. And what's the best move? Okay, so it is knight e1, although you do have knight d4 as well. Knight d4 hits the rook, hits the knight. I don't really see the point as much as knight e1, but okay. You also have knight a3, it says, which is a double attack on the rook. But that's just weird because he'll just move and hit your knight. Anyway, we improve a piece for free. He misses it probably. Free stuff. And now, free stuff. Free stuff. See how they just collapse once the first free stuff thing happens? They psychologically collapse, which makes their moves collapse. Minus 11. He forces us to improve our piece with checkmate threats. Now it's minus 46.7, if you were curious. 46.7. Now it's mate in 5. We move our king, mate in 4, mate in 1. Mate and 1. Wow, I wasn't even looking at that. I was so focused on the rook and knight. There was a mate and 1. And I did a mate and 2. Highly unnecessary when there's a mate and 1 on the board. But what are you going to do? Mate's mate. Submit your rapid games in my Discord. Good luck in your chess, and goodbye.